Hey, what's up everyone? Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be discussing a very disturbing case, and I just want to give everyone a warning that it is very graphic. We're going to be touching on the subject of sexual assault and infant death. If that's something you're sensitive to, I suggest you click out of this video. But the good news is I have plenty of other cases that you might be interested in. I'll link them here. Anyway, let's get right to it. We're going to be discussing the death of Alicia Bromfield and her daughter Ava Lucille.
Before we get started, do me a favor and subscribe. It's free, it only takes a second, and it really helps me continue to do these videos. Also, be sure to click the notification bell to keep up with all of my future uploads. Alright, let's get back to it.
Alicia was born to Sherry Bromfield on August 28, 1990. Sherry was living in Joliet, which is a Chicago suburb. Something incredible about the day Alicia was born was that the historic Plainfield tornadoes were touching down during Sherry's labor only about 10 miles away. It was the only F5 tornado to touch down in the Chicago area, and it was catastrophic. It seemed as if Alicia was meant to be a fighter from her very first day on Earth. To prove that even further, Alicia got meningitis at just a week old, and she spent approximately 3 weeks in the hospital. But thankfully, she pulled through. Sherry and Alicia's biological dad, James, had already separated by the time Alicia was born. And because of that, Sherry and Alicia developed a very close relationship. She was a young, single mother, and despite being terrified in the beginning, Sherry blossomed into a wonderful mother. She would dress Alicia up in multiple outfits just to take pictures of her. When Alicia was 14 months old, Sherry met a man named Joe. They began dating, and Joe took on the role of Alicia's dad. As a child, Alicia was a typical 90s kid. She loved Barney, Alice in Wonderland, and The Lion King. Alicia grew extremely close to Joe, and he and Sherry decided to get married when she was 8 years old. Alicia was extremely happy about this, and even happier when Sherry and Joe welcomed 2 more children, a younger brother and sister for Alicia. Alicia ended up being a wonderful role model for them, and both of her siblings not only adored her, but also really looked up to her as well. In 2006, at the age of 16, Alicia started to really find her independence. She decided that she should find a summer job. She applied to several places and ultimately landed a position at Home Depot. She was super excited about this because it was in the garden department. She felt as if she had more freedom, and she was happy that she was allowed to be outside. She loved being surrounded by beautiful flowers when she was at work. Sherry and Joe were incredibly proud of her. And one day, Sherry decided to drop by and visit Alicia at work. Alicia was really excited and introduced her mom to all of her coworkers. This was the first time that Sherry met Alicia's manager, Brian Cooper. She says that Brian was very talkative and outgoing. She made a mental note that he seemed a little young to be a regional manager. He just didn't strike her as a boss, and she thought that he maybe acted inappropriate given that he was about 15 years older than Alicia. Brian had also hired Alicia's friend Jessica to work at the store as well, and Jessica had an issue with him almost immediately. One day Jessica was working and she was sweating profusely. It's summertime, it was hot. Brian walked up to her and actually wiped the sweat off of her arm. Of course this made Jessica extremely uncomfortable. She was disgusted and told him never to touch her again. He quickly backed off and claimed that he was joking. I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem like a joke to me. Seems a little inappropriate, especially because he was a grown man and she was his teenage employee. Nonetheless, Alicia continued to work at Home Depot until she graduated from Joliet Catholic Academy in 2008. She was ecstatic to attend Western Illinois University and had actually decided to study forensic science. WIU was about 3 hours away from Joliet, but Alicia would return home every summer. She continued to spend her summer summers in the garden department at Home Depot for the next 4 years. It was especially important that Alicia returned to Home Depot in the summer of 2012 because she had come home in the spring and nervously told her parents that she was pregnant. This came as a complete shock to Sherry and Joe. They considered Alicia to be a very responsible young woman. However, we all know how things like that can go. Shit happens. Alicia had met a man at college and began a relationship with him. Her pregnancy was unplanned, but that didn't mean that the baby was unwanted or unloved. Despite the father of the baby not wanting to be involved, Alicia really embraced her pregnancy and was excited to become a mother. Her parents were also very supportive of her. They knew that as a single mother, she was going to need all the help she could get. As soon as she discovered that she was pregnant, she stopped smoking and drinking and began learning to budget and save her money. She decided to keep her pregnancy a secret from her coworkers. And thankfully she did, because when she returned to work, Brian had promoted her. This new position meant more responsibilities, but it also meant that the pay was better, the hours were better, and more importantly, she was actually able to get paid maternity leave. Jessica also continued to work there, but Brian's behavior toward her became increasingly inappropriate. Jessica noticed this behavior toward Alicia as well. He made her so uncomfortable that she decided to put in her 2 weeks notice. When she told Brian that she'd be leaving, he became very angry with her to the point that he made a scene in front of customers. He even called her a dumb bitch for quitting. She was so unsettled by this that she did not finish out her 2 weeks. And she did not even bother to pick up her last paycheck to avoid seeing him. Brian also began asking Alicia to spend time with him outside of work. She wasn't comfortable with this for multiple reasons. She wanted to keep her work life and social life completely separate. Not only that, she wasn't even interested in Brian. Alicia continued to turn Brian down, but did it very politely. She was just trying to maintain her position at Home Depot. After all, she had a baby to consider. She felt like Brian was backing her into a corner, and basically that he was untouchable because he was a regional manager. Alicia decided that she had had enough, and she began searching for other jobs, but it didn't come easily. None of the companies that Alicia had applied at were calling her back. She searched for months with no leads. So I believe she felt trapped in her position. One day, Sherry decided to visit Alicia at work. When she arrived, Brian saw her and was very eager to speak to her. He began telling Sherry that it was so easy to talk to Alicia and how they have so much in common. Toward the end of the conversation, Brian lifted his shirt and showed Sherry a tattoo on his chest. The tattoo said Law of Attraction. He told her that it was something that he learned while he was in anger management. Basically, he was going into great detail about the law of attraction and how positive he was, and how you can speak things into existence. Sherry was very concerned after that conversation. He literally stood there and told her how he attended anger management. After gushing on and on about her daughter, she brought up the conversation to Alicia, and she told Sherry that he was basically harmless and she had nothing to worry about. Once Alicia got a little further into her pregnancy, Sherry told her that she needed to tell Brian that she was pregnant. She was really concerned about Alicia having to push around heavy crates, and they were both pretty nervous about how Brian was going to react. Alicia went into work the next day and told Brian that she was pregnant. He instantly became very angry and almost seemed to be jealous. The first thing he asked her was who the father was, which wow, is very inappropriate and none of his business. When Alicia told him that the baby's father no longer wished to be involved, he calmed down almost immediately and began telling her that he would be there for her, and asked her if she needed anything or if she needed any days off, if there was anything he could do. She told him that she had a doctor's appointment coming up and she needed that day off. He was understanding and said, of course, and was trying to play the caring and supportive role. He took it one step further though, which we'll see later in this video, that he does not know when to stop, but he offered to take her to her doctor's appointment. Alicia declined, again, because she was not interested in Brian. She told him that her mother was going to be taking her to the appointment, at which time he exploded. He made a huge scene in front of customers and went as far as to call her a slut and a whore for being pregnant. I believe Brian thought he could get away with a scene like that because he too believed he was untouchable. He knew that Alicia needed her job and paycheck now more than ever, and he could do whatever he wanted without fear of her speaking up because she didn't want to lose her job. Alicia was very, very upset by this and decided to call her stepfather Joe. She did not want Sherry to know because she thought Sherry would say something. Her parents were very furious about this and obviously recognized that it was very inappropriate. Sherry went in the very next day and confronted Brian. When she did, he basically brushed it off at first and said that he didn't mean it that way. It was just a bad joke. When Sherry didn't buy it and thought that he was lying, he started crying. She believed that he was trying to manipulate her, but believed that Brian would not speak to Alicia like that again. And she dropped it. Alicia went to her doctor's appointment and found out that she was having a little girl. She was over the moon and decided to name her daughter Ava Lucille after her grandmother. Jessica was happy for Alicia when she found out she was having a girl, and she actually gifted her a cute little baby outfit. Opening that gift was what basically transformed Alicia from preparing for a baby to really feeling like a mother. Jessica was also getting married that summer, and they were both so excited to see each other in their different seasons of life. Jessica as a bride and Alicia as a soon-to-be mother. Alicia couldn't wait for Jessica's wedding on August 18th, and she searched for the perfect outfit for weeks. She was 6 months pregnant and was loving all of her new curves. On August 15th, Brian approached Alicia at work and crossed yet another boundary. He told Alicia that his sister's wedding was that weekend and that he was going to be walking her down the aisle and giving her away. Brian asked Alicia to be his date. He really wanted her to go so that he could show her off, and he had been telling his family and other coworkers that Alicia was his girlfriend. Alicia turned him down. She told him that she had Jessica's wedding to go to the same day and that she wouldn't be able to make it to his sister's wedding. When she told him this, he was absolutely furious. He didn't take no for an answer. He then told her that she had two options. She could either come with him to the wedding or that she would be fired. She spent that evening debating whether she should go to the wedding with him. Jessica was one of her best friends, and she had been looking forward to her wedding for months. I think it's so sad that Alicia felt Brian had so much control over her that she had to go to the wedding with him. She really needed that paid maternity leave, and she made the choice that she thought would be better for her daughter at the time. She was willing to make sacrifices. Ultimately, she decided to go to the wedding with Brian, even though she didn't want to. She made it very clear to Brian that they would only be going as friends. When Alicia told her friends and family that she was going with Brian, they were immediately concerned. They didn't think that it was a good idea, but Alicia just reiterated that she needed to keep her job. The wedding was going to be taking place about 4 hours away in Door County, Wisconsin. Door County is a beautiful place to get away to. It's known for its amazing views and long shorelines. It's a huge tourist spot where people frequently host weddings and rent cabins. Brian told Alicia that he booked each of them a separate room, and they were going to be staying at the Sand Bay Beach Resort. He also told her that they would be staying with the entire wedding party. So she felt comfort knowing that she wasn't going to be completely alone with Brian, and that they would only be staying for 2 nights. On Friday, Brian picked Alicia up and they rode to the resort together. Everything seemed to be fine in the beginning, until the morning of the wedding. Alicia actually called Sherry and told her that she and Brian were packing up the car to leave. When Sherry asked her why, Alicia told her that she and Brian had gotten into an argument. I can't be sure, but I believe that the reason they were arguing was due to Brian lying about booking 2 separate rooms. When they arrived, Brian told her not only was there just one room, but there was only one bed as well. Alicia was obviously pissed by this, and Brian purposely set it up that way in hopes of making a move on Alicia. During that argument, Alicia told Brian that there would no longer be a friendship between them when they returned to Joliet. Sherry told Alicia to call Brian's sister to let her know they weren't coming, to which Alicia replied and said she did not know where they were staying. Sherry was alarmed by this and asked if they were staying in the same place, to which Alicia said that they weren't. Alicia texted Sherry later and said that everything was okay and they were staying for the wedding. Alicia and Brian attended the ceremony and reception and seemingly had a good time. At the end of the night, Brian and Alicia returned to the resort. Brian was pretty drunk at the time, and Alicia, being 6.5 months pregnant, was exhausted and just ready for bed. She quickly called her mom to let her know everything was fine, but she was really looking forward to coming home because she said Brian was crazy. Alicia told her that she would see her the next day and she would tell her more about it. But sadly, Sherry would never speak to or see her daughter ever again. Sherry has said that her biggest regret to this day is that she didn't go and pick Alicia up. Brian continued to drink and began to really dwell on what Alicia said earlier in the day. He began pacing and just getting angrier as time went on. He began contemplating what he should do next. And in his words, prepping for his next step. He took cord wires and placed them near the bed. He said that he was considering tying Alicia up. During this, Alicia actually woke up, and Brian asked her if they could have a Netflix and chill type of day when they returned Sunday. He claims that they had discussed that previously, but I think if Alicia agreed to that, it's because she was forced to. Her response was not what Brian wanted to hear. She told him that they would not be spending time together on Sunday, and that their friendship was over. That completely set Brian off. Alicia was still lying on her back in the bed, and as soon as she turned him down about Sunday, Brian jumped on top of her. Alicia began screaming and begging Brian not to do anything. She was screaming he was going to hurt the baby and saying, "Please don't do this because of the baby." She attempted to fight back, but Brian put his hands around her throat and began strangling her. Alicia bit his finger and they both rolled off the bed. Brian said that he strangled her on the floor for a couple of minutes before Alicia and ultimately Ava lost their lives. This is where things get even more disturbing and pretty graphic, so again, now is your chance to click out of the video. Once it was apparent that Alicia was dead, Brian pulled down Alicia's underwear and began raping her, most likely while Ava was still dying inside of her womb. Afterward, Brian put a pillow under Alicia's head and covered her up with a blanket from the bed. He claims that he then tried to kill himself with a fucking butter knife, and then a tiny corkscrew, but failed, and ultimately decided to sleep in the bathtub. When he woke up the next morning, he drove to the park, got into the bay, and attempted to drown himself. He was again unsuccessful, and that's a damn shame. He got back in his car and began driving around, looking for a gas station so he could call the police. When he finally found a gas station, he stumbled inside sopping wet and asked to call 911. The way that he speaks to the 911 operator is very matter of fact. As Alicia's mom stated, it's like he's ordering a pizza or something. Police arrive at the gas station and take him into custody. When they began interrogating Brian, he was very matter of fact yet again. He completely confessed and told police exactly what happened. When police arrived to the resort, they discovered Alicia's deceased body, and investigators said she appeared as if she was sleeping. Shockingly, after Brian confessed to murdering Alicia, he admitted that he had hurt another woman prior to this. He claimed that he had harmed his ex-girlfriend and that he tied her up to force her to listen to him. Sadly, that woman never pressed charges. If she had, Alicia and Ava may still be here today. When police pushed further to find out exactly what Brian's motive was, he stated that he did not want to drive 6 hours back home with Alicia, knowing that they were no longer going to have a friendship when they got back. So instead, he murdered Alicia and her baby. Brian was charged with 2 counts of first-degree homicide and third-degree sexual assault of a corpse. Meanwhile, a police officer that was friends with Alicia's family showed up at their door. He had tears in his eyes. Sherry said that she knew immediately that Alicia was dead. She initially thought that he was going to tell her that she died in a car accident on the way home. Instead, he said, "There has been a homicide." This completely shocked Alicia's family. They were obviously devastated and sickened at the fact that instead of calling 911 to try to save Ava, he raped Alicia instead. When Brian went in front of a judge, he shockingly pleaded not guilty despite his confession. I mean, he literally told police that he intentionally killed Alicia several times throughout the interrogation and on the 911 call. The reason for his not guilty plea? Because he was intoxicated. Intoxication was his fucking defense. He claimed that he was too drunk to realize he was killing Alicia. More evidence was actually brought to light in court. Police had searched Brian's laptop and found videos of Alicia that were shot in his home in Plainfield. He would ask Alicia to go and let his dog out, aka forced her to, and he had drilled a tiny hole in a shelf that was in front of his toilet, just big enough for a small spy camera. When she would go to the bathroom, he had the camera on. Brian also brought another spy camera to the resort where he killed Alicia. He hid it in a trash can in the bathroom, and he actually caught her on video getting out of the shower. Brian ended up taking the stand in his own defense, and the case went to the jury. The verdict ended up being a hung jury. 10 believed that he was guilty, and 2 did not because he was too intoxicated to know what he was doing. Alicia's family were disturbed to find out that the 2 that found him not guilty were women. He was found guilty of sexual assault to a corpse. Alicia's mom did not accept this as the ending to her daughter's story, though. The next day, all of Alicia's friends and family gathered and decided that they were going to change the law. Sherry didn't want anyone else to be able to use that cop-out plea, and they made it happen. She got the voluntary intoxication law banished not only in Wisconsin, but 31 other states as well. Because Alicia and Ava's murder took place before the law was changed, Brian would still be able to use it in his new trial. Jurors heard testimony from Brian, from wedding guests describing just how drunk he was or wasn't. It went to jurors, and there was a verdict within the hour. The jury found Brian guilty on 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide for Alicia and Ava. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. But Sherry didn't stop there. She and Joe started an amazing organization in honor of Alicia and Ava. It's called the Purple Project. So every year, the organization sponsors a young single mother for the entire first year of her baby's life. They generously give not only financial support, but also emotional support as well. They're also striving to help others heal from the death of a loved one. They've actually began offering grief counseling and retreats after struggling to find affordable help for themselves. Luckily, this case is solved, so I don't have any theories to offer, but I feel like I can't end the video without saying this. There were so many red flags when it came to Brian Cooper. He was harassing Alicia years before her murder. Several of her friends and family noticed. Alicia noticed, but was too afraid to put a stop to it. If you have an encounter with someone that makes you feel uncomfortable, please say something. Regardless if it's a spouse, friend, supervisor, it doesn't matter. Tell someone. Don't be afraid to ask someone for help or ask someone to pick you up if you're in an uncomfortable situation. Alicia and Ava had their whole lives ahead of them. She made the decision to sacrifice going to her best friend's wedding because she believed it would give her job security. She was trying to do what was best for Ava, and I think she was trying to hold on a little longer before she went on maternity leave. And sadly, that cost her and Ava their lives. Please remember that no one is untouchable. No one is is above the law. Any harassment at work is never okay. And no job is ever worth putting yourself in a risky situation. Sherry is an incredible woman and was raising an incredible daughter. She has said that she chooses to remember how Alicia lived rather than how she died. And I know that if given the chance, Alicia would have raised Ava to be as strong and independent as she was. Alicia was only 1 semester away from becoming a forensic scientist. She was only 21 years old. Imagine all the greatness she still had to offer the world. And Brian Cooper stripped the world of all the great things that Alicia and Ava were going to do together. And he deserves exactly what he got. Because Home Depot was aware of his constant harassment, Sherry filed a lawsuit against Home Depot for not firing Brian. The lawsuit noted that there was a long history of sexual harassment, which Home Depot was aware of and did nothing about. However, I was unable to determine if Sherry won that lawsuit or not. Hopefully, they settled outside of court. Sherry took every parent's worst nightmare and turned it into a positive thing. How have I not heard of Alicia's story before? How have I not heard of Sherry before? I'm surprised that Alicia's case has not been discussed more. Please do me a favor and share her story. Spread the word. Even if it helps one person recognize they're in a bad situation, it's worth it. If you'd like to help Alicia's family out with the Purple Project, you can find a donate button on their website at www.aliciaandavabromfield.com, which allows you to donate through PayPal, or on www.purpleproject.org. They actually accept monetary donations, and they have a couple of addresses you can send baby items to. I'll put the links and addresses in the description below. They need items such as diapers, wipes, bottles, onesies, pacifiers, baby socks, bibs, baby clothing, and they also accept gift cards as well. So you can actually go on Amazon and send something directly to them to help out. If you're not able to, I completely understand, but do me a favor and please share this video. Let's get Alicia and Ava's story out there, you guys, because this happens far more than it should. Okay, that's it for me today, guys. Thanks for watching, and as always, remember the name Kasey Shane. I'm out.